You know what I've come to realize? There are a lot of similarities between how I view the Kansas City Chiefs and how I view Donald Trump as a politician. Good morning. Happy Monday. It's great to be here on KCMO. They frustrate the heck out of you. You know the potential's there. You know if they're on their A game, nobody can beat them. But sometimes they just want to play down to the competition. Sometimes they want to make it more difficult than it needs to be. Now, that wasn't the case yesterday for the Chiefs in San Francisco. They took care of the Niners 28-18. But just generally, I'm watching the game yesterday, and I'm always trying to think about the show and where we're going to go with the show the next morning and what the show is going to look like. And I'm thinking about how the Chiefs are now 6-0 for the first time since 2013. So never in the Patrick Mahomes era has this team started off 6-0. And I'm not convinced this is the best edition of this Mahomes-era Kansas City Chiefs team. But whatever, it's working, right? I mean, they're sitting there. They're 6-0. You can't be upset with that, Mark.
I think it's the defense.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, man. The defense is what continues to carry this team. And when we look back on this era of Kansas City Chiefs football, we won't talk enough about the defense, especially last year and this year, depending on how this season plays out. But we're not going to do it no matter what. We'll talk about Mahomes and Kelsey and everything else, but we will not talk enough about how this defense, especially last year and this year, is basically the reason this team is having the success that it's having. So Donald Trump, over the weekend, ends up showing you just how high that ceiling can be. When he's focused, when he's having a good time, there are few retail politicians like Donald Trump. Did you see him running the McDonald's drive-thru in Pennsylvania over the weekend? I kid you not. It was quite a sight to see with Donald Trump working the drive-thru at a McDonald's in Western Pennsylvania.
We have pizzas, we have 300 hamburgers, many French fries.
Now, that's from his time in office, but it's still one of my favorite drops of all time on this show. It's probably 6 years old at this point. It's from when the Clemson Tigers came to the White House after they won the national championship.
It's my girl's favorite drop, too. Whenever I bring them in here, they have to hear it on.
Well, yesterday, Donald Trump worked the drive-thru. And not only was it absolutely hysterical, it was political gold. And the reason he did it is because he was trolling his opponent, Kamala Harris, who claimed at one point to have worked at a McDonald's, but there is no evidence that anybody can find that suggests she ever worked at a McDonald's. So Trump does this political stunt yesterday. He's in Western PA, and he goes there and he works at a McDonald's drive-thru. And he works the fries. He does the drive-thru itself for a little bit. And he's having a good time. And I'm watching this guy. And I'm saying to myself, he's funny. He can turn a line. He's clever in his approach. He does seem in that moment to these people who are working there and to the folks at the drive-thru very approachable. Like, he has incredible talents when it comes to interacting and connecting with people. Just like the Chiefs have incredible talent when it comes to throwing the ball, passing the ball, defense, everything else. But sometimes he can be his own worst enemy. Donald Trump and any Republican should frankly be up 10 points right now in this race. Now, he might comfortably win if the trends continue the way they're going. He might. He might very well do it. But he should be up 10 points. Based on who he's up against, based on the last 4 years, based on the policies during his 4 years in office, it should not be close. And then you add on to that his ability to retail politic and also be funny in the process. There might be other politicians in my lifetime who might do a stunt like this, show up at McDonald's and work the drive-thru, but they would not be able to do it in as humorous a way as Donald Trump. I have spent the last day or so watching some of these videos, and I'm smiling ear to ear the entire time because it's just hysterical. As Trump is sitting there working the fryer and talking about how he's making sure he's filling the fries to the brim while making sure they do not touch, as he calls it, the human hand.
Tight. We got the salt on it. Never touches the human hand. Nice and full.
Thank you.
Nice and full. Food that never touches the human hand. He's giving you like a play-by-play of him putting the fries into the big red McDonald's container. It's pure comedy.
He's doing that so he can do it on radio.
Well,
He's helping us out.
He is helping us out because it does play well on radio versus just having the video. He's giving you the play-by-play of him filling up the fries. And I'm watching this, and I'm saying, I don't care if you can't stand Donald Trump. This is political brilliance. It is highlighting something your opponent claims to have done, which is supposed to be one of the few things that makes her relatable to the everyday person. In comes Donald Trump, the braggadocious billionaire from New York City, who then works at the McDonald's himself for whatever it was, an hour or something like that, and completely owns the moment and makes it funny and makes it relatable, and is something that people in Pennsylvania can look at and say, you know what, that guy, I can get behind that guy, because you draw a connection to somebody in that moment. If somebody makes you laugh, especially in today's environment, if somebody makes you laugh, you can't put a price tag on it. And when you have Donald Trump's ability to make someone laugh, but then also have the policies that people know work better for them and their families, well, you've got yourself a winner right now. So we are sitting here 2 weeks and 1 day out from Election Day. And I will say early voting opened up on Saturday on the Kansas side of the state line. And I heard the lines were tremendous. People told me that they were bursting out of the seams on some of the early voting locations in Johnson County. So I hope that's a sign of things to come, John.
I thought big screen TVs were on sale. You know,
no.
Black Friday.
It was not a Black Friday rush.
It's on sale over there.
Lines were out the door, man, at some of these locations.
Your future is on sale.
Yeah, maybe that's
Right.
it. People are waking up. So you had a lot of people who are looking at the situation right now. And with all the momentum in Donald Trump's favor, you can't sit here and not think about 2 years ago when it was like, oh, the red wave is coming. And the red wave was a red puddle. It did not happen. But you would much rather be right now, with 15 days left, Donald Trump than Kamala Harris, just with where the momentum has shifted in this race.
Indeed. Your Chiefs analogy is brilliant. I just told Mark when I came in, I told my wife yesterday during the game, I'm retiring as a fan. I can't take this. There was Tom Brady telling me Xavier Worthy just need to get comfortable and get integrated into the offense over and over. And the whole thing. And it's like, I can't deal with this anymore, I feel like. But
they keep winning.
I cannot afford to not be a Trump fan right now.
Yes.
Because I cannot afford to be a liberal based on these prices out here. So I might quit the Chiefs.
Yeah. You're not quitting Trump, though.
Cannot afford that right now.
You can't afford it right now. And that's the thing. Trump drives you nuts, right? Just like the Chiefs, they drive you nuts when you watch them because you feel like the team is not hitting its potential every time they get out there. But guess what? You're going to keep rooting for them. You know that them winning is good for you. And you realize, especially if you're in Kansas City, you've got no choice. 913-408-7957. And that just hit me yesterday as I'm sitting there watching the game. Donald Trump to politics is the Kansas City Chiefs to the NFL. As we get it rolling on a Monday morning, we will get to you as well. And if you missed it, there was a big birthday yesterday that we have to tell you about here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And as always, we are streaming this morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app. You missed it? You guys weren't celebrating yesterday? Come on. It was Kamala Harris's birthday. Yeah, she turned the big 6-0 yesterday. So a happy birthday. Drop the politics and let's all wish a happy birthday to Kamala. Happy birthday to Kamala. Am I saying her name right? Or is she going to be offended because I'm singing her name improperly? I don't know. Sometimes she seems to get upset. I think it's Kamala. I think it's the emphasis on the Kamala. I think. I don't know. Either way, she turned 60 yesterday, and she made some visits to Atlanta churches. She campaigned with Usher, which is a weird thing to do on your birthday. And odd to me, since Usher 2 weeks ago was on The View, and he's like, yeah, I'm not getting involved in politics. And now he's out there trying to help Kamala Harris in Atlanta. So what's going on there? I don't know. But Usher's now in the mix. So she got Usher and Mark Anthony, two guys whose hits last came in 2002. It's been 22 years for each of them. But I guess if that's what you're going for, so be it. Which should help you, by the way, with the white ladies for Kamala Harris. Usher and Mark Anthony. Bring them back to their, heyday in the early 2000s. But she had a birthday yesterday, and two things stood out to me on Kamala Harris's birthday. One, she gets asked by Peter Alexander of ABC News about how her birthday signifies generational change in this election. And take a listen to this.
You have a milestone birthday on Sunday. Chivalry is not dead. I'm not going to say what age you're turning then, but you talk about generational change. What does generational change mean to you?
I think it's about a state of mind, and it is about understanding that we should be focused on this moment. And this is a very particular moment where there's a lot happening in our country that is about innovation, that are about really new approaches to longstanding challenges. And it's a new generation of thinking as much as anything else.
So generational change is really just an idea. It doesn't mean anything. That was an all-time word salad from the word salad queen. I'm going to read to you what she said when she was asked by Peter Alexander, what does generational change mean to you? I think it's about a state of mind. Now, I'm going to read this because I think it's almost more effective when I read the words. You just heard her say what I'm reading to you now, but I think it's just as effective when I step back and just read the words off a page. I think it's about a state of mind. And it is about understanding we should be focused on this moment. And this is a very particular moment where there's a lot happening in our country that is about innovation, that are about really new approaches to longstanding challenges. And it's a new generation of thinking as much as anything else. It sounds like me BSing my way through a college speech. A report, that moment when you wake up hungover and you have to go do a presentation in some course that you don't care one bit about, you would say something like that, wouldn't you? We've all been there and done that. That is what Kamala Harris just said when asked about generational change and what it means to her. It's a state of mind. It's a way to think. So it's not really about anything. It's not about substance. It's not about policy. It's not about anything that really changes people's lives. It's just a way to think or something like that. Now, here's the thing about policies. They don't care about how old you are. Policies either work or they don't. They're either effective or they're not. It doesn't matter who's sharing those ideas. It doesn't matter if they're 78, 58, or 38. All that matters is that those ideas work for people. I don't care who's sharing the ideas. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your age is. I don't care what your gender is. If you have good ideas, if they are proven to work, then guess what? The American people should give you a shot, whether it's for city council or president of the United States. And when you have such little substance behind you, when your substance is such, frankly, an afterthought to your campaign, this is the kind of stuff you get from somebody who has a coin flip's chance of being the next president of the United States. You get somebody who just says stuff and combines words and hopes that they kind of make sense and have some substance to them. And then when you actually read them on the paper, you realize they mean nothing. Kamala Harris said absolutely nothing there to Peter Alexander, who stood there with his big ass-eating grin on behalf of ABC News and acted like it meant anything. And it meant absolutely nothing. Because, frankly, most things that she ends up saying about policy mean absolutely nothing. Now, with it being her 60th birthday, I wanted to also share with you here a nice little clip that the in-laws shared for Kamala Harris. So this is, what are the in-laws' names again? I think I saw, where did I see this? This was on X. Give me the in-laws' names there, Mark. I think you had this clip up.
Barb and I can't remember the dad's name.
Well,
it's Dougie's dad.
Doug's dad. This is Doug Emhoff's dad and Barb, Doug's mom.
They introduced themselves.
Yeah. Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I was going to say, and Doug Imhoff would have a mother named Barb. No offense to the Barbs, but she's a Barb. Isn't your mom Barb, Mark? No, she's a Karen. That's right. Barb and Karen. two classic boomer white lady names, Barb and Karen. So let's take a listen to the in-laws wishing Kamala Harris a happy birthday with this poem they put on social media.
Hi, everyone. We're Mike and Barb Imhoff, the parents of the second gentleman, and we're here today to honor our daughter-in-law, Kamala Harris, on her birthday.
Blink twice if you're being held hostage.
Poem.
60 stars for Kamala. 60 years of laughter, 60 years of grace, a guiding light with a smiling face. From courtroom halls to Senate floors, a voice of justice forever endures.
With every step you've shown your might, inspiring hope, turning wrongs to right. Heart beat strong through every trial, carving paths with courage and style.
For each candle's glow, a wish so bright, for all the lives you've helped ignite. Here's to 60 more dreams so grand, with love and warmth held in your hand.
Happy birthday, Kamala, from your loving in-laws, Mike and Barb.
May joy never part.
You lead with your head and give with your heart. We love you.
Okay. Mike and Barb wishing their daughter-in-law, Kamala Harris, a happy 60th birthday on social media.
Green beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat. I'll bet their answering machine's a real joy, too. Right?
Yeah, they still have the answering machine.
Right?
I can't. Exactly. They still have the home answering machine right there. Oh, my goodness. That is just too much. It does feel like a hostage video. I'm not going to lie. When you watch it, they're looking into the screen like, please save us. Save us from ourselves. Blink twice. Do it. Oh, man. Well, the birthday has come and gone, and we genuinely do wish Kamala Harris a happy birthday. And I thought at the beginning of the poem when they said 60 years of laughter, 60 years of light, 60 years of grace. All true. That's great. Outstanding. Happy birthday, Kamala Harris. Just let's not include 4 years, or dare I say 8 years, in the White House. Coming up on KCMO, local Congresswoman Sharice Davids is dodging something local media is not picking up. We'll tell you about it next. You're probably not going to see this pop up in local Kansas City area media. It should, because it involves one of our local Congress people, but once you hear the story, you'll understand why it's not going to get any traction. So let's go down to Anderson County, Kansas. Now you might say, well, why would the Kansas City media cover Anderson County, Kansas? Well, Anderson County, Kansas is now represented in Washington, D.C. by Sharice Davids. Yes, Sharice Davids now is the congresswoman for Anderson County, Kansas, which is just due south of Ottawa. Garnett is the center of Anderson County, Kansas. Population only about 8,000 people. So when the maps were redrawn, the congressional maps were redrawn a couple of years back in Kansas, the 3rd district, instead of just being Johnson County, Wyandotte County, and a little bit of Miami County, it became a little bit of Wyandotte County. It became all of Johnson County. It became all of Miami County. And then it also included Anderson County and Franklin County. So those two counties to our southwest became part of the 3rd district in the state of Kansas. So it got a little more rural. Well, here's what happened in Anderson County, Kansas in the last couple of weeks. Local authorities have said a suspect, Porfirio de la Cruz, Cantu, age 33, is subject to a hold order by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency and is being held in Anderson County Jail after being charged this week with the assault and battery of a 64-year-old Ottawa woman after he allegedly attacked her several miles north of Garnett while she bicycled on the Prairie Spirit Trail. The Anderson County Sheriff's Office said the non-English speaking male was located a short time after the assault. on U.S. Highway 59 and taken into custody. The attack occurred south of the hiking and biking trails on the morning of October 10th. Officers say the female bicyclist was able to fight off De La Cruz and escape to the home of a neighbor in the area who rendered aid and called 911. De La Cruz was apprehended not too far from that location. A sheriff's office report said the woman suffered lacerations and bruises, but that her injuries were not life-threatening. De La Cruz is reportedly employed at a local restaurant in Garnett. He was being held in the Anderson County Jail this week on charges of mistreatment of an elderly person, confinement and criminal restraint and battery, a level 5 felony. He was assigned counsel at the state's expense last week and set for his first appearance coming up tomorrow on Tuesday, October 22nd. So here is Sharice Davids, somebody who has backed Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every step of the way on basically every single federal policy, has in no way spoken out in any meaningful way against their horrific handling of the border. And now what you have here is the allegation of somebody with ICE involved who may not be here illegally, potentially assaulting one of her own constituents. And who knows how much worse it could have been. And Sharice Davids was reached out to by the only media outlet that I saw talk about this, and that is the Kansas Informer, and of course, declined to comment. Of course, declined to comment. Do you think that's something that the Kansas City Star is going to pick up on anytime soon? Do you think that the Kansas City Star will do anything with this news? No, of course not. No way. I mean, of course, they already endorsed her in this election, so there is not a chance they'll do anything with this news. And they'll probably say, well, it's not even local anyway. Well, it is local because now Anderson County, Kansas is part of Sharice Davids' district. It is part of the 3rd Congressional District. And she, of course, is the congresswoman for the most populated county in the state of Kansas. And that happens to be part of the Kansas City Metro. This is another example of why you need to make sure, not that this can't happen with a better immigration policy, but it's why you need to be doing a better job of having policy that actually makes sure we have some semblance of an idea of who's coming to the country. Not that we can't let people in who might beat up some lady on a on a running trail or a biking trail once in a while. That's always possible. You can't guarantee somebody's not going to come here and be an alleged criminal, but you've got to make sure you're doing a better job than what we've seen the last 3.5 years. And doing a better job in the last 3.5 years is not difficult to do. In fact, it's impossible to do a worse job than the last 3.5 years when it comes to border policy. And the excuses of, well, you know what we need? What we need is more workers here. And that's why we've got to have this wide open border. That is not an excuse. It's not. Yes, we need people to come here to the country to work. We aren't having enough kids. You've got too many people that are on the government dole. I think there are ways to inherently fix that, but I get it. Yes, we do need workers, no doubt about it. But just because we need workers doesn't mean you flood the border and say, whoever wants to come in, come on in. That's not how you're supposed to handle it. You can't use the line that, if you didn't hear this, Catherine Rampell from the Washington Post used on CNN late last week when she was talking about Donald Trump and his border policies and, well, who's going to pick the crops?
He's going to crack down on immigration to the benefit of American workers.
He's going to deport 20 million people, the people who pick your crops, the people who process your meat, the people who, care for your grandmother, the people who serve all sorts of critical functions in this country.
Who's going to pick the crops? Said the Democrat as if it was 1860. Yeah, we need workers. We get it. We understand it. And here's the thing. We have had immigrants doing work that admittedly millions of Americans don't want to do for decades and, frankly, centuries at this point. And we have allowed them in through more or less a civilized process. Yes, some have gotten in illegally. We understand that. But in large part, we have allowed people in to do the work that needs to be done in America. But that is no excuse for the policies of the people in charge over the last 3.5 years. And Sharice Davids, just like Kamala Harris, Sharice Davids here in the 3rd District of Kansas should be able to answer a question on this and should be able to distinguish, yes, we need workers from a wide open southern border that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have elected to make their policy up until it was politically inconvenient 3 months ago. 913-408-7957. If you are a 3rd District voter right now and you're looking at this race, Sharice Davids versus Prasanth Reddy, he's the Republican in this thing. He is an underdog, there's no doubt about it, but I saw he had a big old crowd last week in Olathe. He had about 200 and some odd people show up. So I do think there's some energy on the other side that maybe we didn't see the last 2 cycles, but it's still a major uphill climb. And a story like this will never see the light of day in area local media because it's not convenient. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. We will get to the Chiefs game with Kendall Gammon just after 7 o'clock on KCMO. And now, speaking of the Chiefs and politics, the team president, Mark Donovan, spoke to a national outlet last week about Harrison Butker. Just saw this. It didn't get a lot of, I don't think it's gotten any attention. I just stumbled upon it. What did Mark Donovan say about Harrison Butker getting involved in politics? We'll tell you next on KCMO. Harrison Butker obviously has become pretty darn political. And he's doing it in a way that, whether you agree or disagree with him, at least he's handling himself like an adult. He's endorsing candidates who he believes in. He's done one big endorsement, and he did a couple rallies last week during the bye week with Josh Hawley. Of course, we had that exclusive interview for you here on KCMO. You can find it on the podcast, Apple or Spotify. I guess that would have been about 10 days ago now. They did that rally up in Parkville. And then he's also set up a political PAC so he can endorse and support candidates through his political action committee. That's what adults do. Colin Kaepernick plays the grift game, tries to play a victim, and then get endorsements from Nike. Harrison Butker, being the adult that he is, says, well, I believe in issues A, B, and C. I will set up a PAC and then use my money as I see fit to endorse people and causes that I believe in. Because that's how adults handle their business when they actually want to be involved politically. Not just claim the victim status like someone like Colin Kaepernick, and then try to basically rip off corporate America. Well, Harrison Butker has drawn some backlash, and we all know how this game has been played since the Benedictine College speech back in May. But to his credit, he's not backed down. Well, his president, Chiefs President Mark Donovan, talked to Variety last week. Now, I don't know how this came about, why Mark Donovan's doing interviews with Variety, which is, it's like People Magazine, right? Basically, that's what Variety is. I don't know how Mark Donovan came into this. Kind of
a Hollywood mag.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I don't know how this came to be, but whatever.
Showbiz.
We've been trying to get Mark Donovan on to talk some stadium stuff the last few weeks. So come on, we're here for you, Mark.
He's looking for the overnight ratings.
Well, remember, John, we had Mark Donovan on back in April, and we got him on TMZ. He made TMZ when he went on this show because it was right after the Rashee Rice incident down in Dallas. So we helped Mark go viral here on KCMO. Come on now. But anyway, he talks to Variety late last week, and here's what he said about Harrison Butker. You've got to think of it from the perspective of a team and a locker room. In our locker room, like any family, there are people with different opinions. And one of the things we preach is respect, or as some would say, respect.
Show some RESPICT.
In our locker room, like any family, there are people with different opinions. We preach respect. So I respect Harrison's views. I don't necessarily agree with him. He has to respect that I don't necessarily agree with him. and we've got to communicate that. And that was one of the things we talked about, and he was very supportive of that. So Variety and other media outlets run the headline, Chiefs president doesn't necessarily agree with Harrison Butker. And it's supposed to be like gotcha journalism. Okay, and that's fine. What's the big deal? Does he have to agree with every single sentence that Harrison Butker has ever uttered politically? No, he doesn't. And it's fine that he doesn't. I'm not bothered by it, and neither should you be. Who cares? Was my reaction. But here's what they do. They find these lightning rods, right? These people that they want to dump on, whether it's Donald Trump or Harrison Butker or fill in the blank, right? And then they find people where they can see, gotcha, this person doesn't agree with you. Like with Trump, it's, let's find countless numbers of registered Republicans like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Let's find these Republicans that people don't really care about to say, Trump's an orange bad man. And then in this case, let's get the Chiefs president on the record to say he doesn't necessarily agree with Harrison Butker. Now, Mark Donovan's a very smart man. He didn't go blow by blow on what he agrees with Harrison Butker on and what he disagrees with Harrison Butker on. He didn't do that. He just came out and he said, I don't necessarily agree with him. Great. Wow. Welcome to America. This is not news. But the media, they just want to find people that they can punch back at or punch down at by using the words of others that they perceive to be just as powerful. So that's why Variety's screaming with this headline over the weekend about Mark Donovan disagreeing with Harrison Butker. Big freaking deal. Whoop-de-doo. Wow. Mark Donovan goes on to say here to Variety, it is utilized in almost every situation that we deal with in a positive way. Make a decision based on respect. We've had issues in the past in the locker room with guys, not to get political, but to get political. There are guys with a Black Lives Matter hat and a Make America Great Again hat in the locker room next to him. You can believe those things, which may be different in some ways, but you're going to play together and you're going to respect each other. You mean like how in my neighborhood and in your neighborhood, there might be somebody with a Trump Vance sign and somebody else with a Harris Wall sign living next door to each other? Yet they still will cordially say hi and mow the lawn together and do the whole thing? You mean like that? You mean like how normal people interact every single day in this country? You know how many people in a building that has 6 radio stations disagree with me, that I still respect, that I still help out, they still help out me? Happens every single day because that's how normal America operates. But so many in media, especially in their media bubbles of New York and LA, and as someone who used to work in that media bubble, I can attest to it firsthand, they don't see the world that way. They don't view the world that way. They don't. They view it through this bizarre prism of everything is political, and if you're not with them, well, you might as well be the biggest rube that's ever walked the planet. And that's in part how we end up in the situation that we end up with when it comes to our political discourse in this country as well. But this was one big nothing burger. And now that we know Mark Donovan has time for Variety, we will try to book him again very soon on this show to talk about things like real things happening here in Kansas City. It's very telling with the way the media has reacted to Donald Trump doing this little goof of a sitting in a McDonald's over the weekend and spending some time handing out Big Macs and making French fries and the whole thing. And they are trying to make this out to be a big swing and a miss. And if they're making it out to be a big swing and a miss, you know it worked. You know it actually had an impact. And they secretly wish that Donald Trump did not do this. I did see as well that Quinton Lucas was in a swing state this weekend, the mayor of Kansas City. He just posted some photos here in the last hour saying, quote, Wisconsin will be pivotal to the outcome of the presidential election. It was an honor to spend my Sunday talking about voting with churchgoers, the Urban League of Madison, and folks knocking doors. Thank you for having me in your beautiful city yesterday. Mayor Q should have put on the apron up there in Madison, and he should have worked the fryer as well, just like I may actually post that here on X to him shortly when I have a minute. But here was Tim Walz, of course, Kamala Harris's VP choice, responding to Donald Trump yesterday, posting on X, "This guy spent decades stiffing workers' pay, cut overtime benefits for millions of people, and opposed any effort to raise the minimum wage. You know who actually has worked at McDonald's, joined workers on the picket lines, and fights for working people? ? Kamala Harris." Well, we're still actually looking for that proof, and if the media wanted to do any honest digging, if this was a Republican who may have been not forthright with the people about working at McDonald's, this would be the all-time scandal. Could you imagine if it was the other way around and Trump had claimed to work at McDonald's and there's really no proof that he had worked at a McDonald's? Oh, my goodness. Here was the headline from the New York Times, or the, I guess you would say, first sentence of their article about this over the weekend. Donald Trump has claimed without evidence that Ms. Harris never worked at the fast food chain. Her campaign and a friend say she did. So basically, Trump claims she has no evidence, but she and her friend literally told us. That's basically what they're arguing here. Oh, yeah? Well, her friend told us she did. McDonald's has no history of it, but the friend said so, John.
Legal precedent was set in the theory.
Oh, my goodness, you can't make it up. So I don't know whether or not she did. I just know this. It's entertaining politics, and it helps down the stretch here for Donald Trump to highlight this. All the differences when it comes to policy have been highlighted, right? And he's continuing to make inroads with working class Americans. And her argument is you can't trust Donald Trump. I'm the more likable candidate. That's obviously debatable, but that's the argument. I'm all about the joys and the feels, and Trump's a liar and Orange Man bad. Well, he's now using this issue to poke a hole into that narrative. That's what he's doing here. The AP is covering as well. Associated Press writing here over the weekend. Trump will visit McDonald's as he offers no evidence for saying Harris didn't work there in college. So the AP gives Kamala Harris a pass on her claim she worked at McDonald's, though she provided zero evidence. Instead, they put the burden of proof on Trump to disprove it, which is virtually impossible. It is a maddening double standard, which is repeated far and wide by the legacy media, depending on the issue and the topic and the story. But now instead of them actually doing their work as like supposed, quote, journalists,
AKA fact checker.
Yes. Instead of them doing the heavy lifting and putting the burden of proof on the candidate to say, hey, show us the records. Give us something that showed you worked here. They say, well, Trump hasn't shown us any evidence otherwise. See, the burden of proof has to be on Donald Trump to disprove it. This is like in a court of law, you disproving you did not murder somebody. That's what they're making the case for here. And then there were meltdowns like this on MSNBC over the weekend as they continue to cope in the wake of Donald Trump doing this political stunt yesterday where he worked the drive-thru at a McDonald's.
If you're on his campaign, and I know you are certainly not, I'm not making any implication of that, but what is the logic behind this, going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well, and he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during this campaign. So this is just another one of those stunts that he will continue on through the campaign. And I think that we need to really focus on making sure that he is not elected, of course, because he is a threat to our democracy.
So, weave it all the way around to threat to democracy, and he's not well, and all these people who said that Joe Biden's fine, everything's great, now say Trump is not well because he worked the fryer at a McDonald's. Do they not realize that can come across very arrogant and very insulting and very presumptuous. Do they not connect the dots on that? Donald Trump doing a job and working for a business that millions of Americans have worked for at one point or another in their lives is now him being unwell, him somehow mocking those who do work there. I saw a guy who was taking the task pretty seriously. And I will say the one thing about Donald Trump that I have to critique him on is his enjoyment of filet of fish, which is possibly one of the more disgusting fast food items you could order. But I will let that slide because, well, there's a lot of things I like about the policy. So I'll let the filet of fish go. But if you missed some of the clips and the highlights from Trump at the McDonald's in Western PA, this was just comedic gold.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again. Thank you. Look at that. Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much for everything you do.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you very much.
The guy and his wife show up and they say, thank you. You know, you took a bullet for us. We so appreciate you. Thank you for talking to us, ordinary Americans. And Trump at the beginning says, you know, I could do this all day. Well, here's what Trump might be missing about the job. Most people who are working a McDonald's drive-thru don't get told how much they are loved by the people that are driving through the drive-thru. That's the difference, right? Most people who are working the drive-thru don't get told how great they are as they are meeting customers in the drive-thru, John.
He said that he could do this all day and that he'll probably come back and do it. Don't you know the clock is ticking somewhere else for some fact checker?
Yes. The media will be
reelected. It'll be into the term. You know, we'll be swearing in the next guy, number 48 or whatever, and it'll be, he's never returned.
He never went back. He said he was going to go back and work the drive-thru.
They should have given him a bag with 10-piece nuggets instead of a Big Mac, and then, hey, this is the wrong order, so he could have had the real experience.
Yeah, he could have gotten the real treatment of the McDonald's drive-thru. But that line...
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job.
Yeah, well, that's because people are telling you how great you are. Trust me, the average McDonald's drive-thru guy or gal are not getting told, hey, you're awesome, man. You're the best. Oh, you're the greatest. It's like, damn it, the fries are cold. What's wrong with you?
I can imagine the hairdo after an 8-hour shift, too.
Oh, 913-408-7957 on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. So the Kansas City Star has endorsed the person who is not going to be the next governor for the state of Missouri. That would be Crystal Quade, the Democratic candidate for Missouri governor, going up against Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. But that is not a surprise at all.
Talk about a bombshell.
Like I said, I don't know why Republican candidates bother doing this dog and pony show with the Kansas City Star, sitting down for interviews with the editorial board and acting like they have any chance at all of ever getting their endorsement. But some of them keep doing it. They just can't help themselves. They have no choice. Their campaigns tell them it's a good idea. I don't know what it is. Now, I don't think in reading this piece, Kehoe did that. They don't talk about sitting down with Mike Kehoe. They do talk about sitting down with Crystal Quade. But I'm just speaking in general when I say candidates, Republicans in particular, who think they're going to sit down with the Star editorial board and try to convince them that they're the right person for the job. They are wasting their time. Go take that hour or 2 hours or whatever it is and go knock a few dozen doors, and you're going to spend much better use of your time than sitting down with the Kansas City Star editorial board. Why would you bother? So, of course, the reason they endorse Crystal Quade is not because of the Missouri economy, not because of anything to do with education, right? None of those things. It's because of, well, one thing and one thing only, and that would be abortion, which is obviously a weird obsession for the Kansas City Star. Now, you would think, before I get into the why, you would think that with this abortion amendment on the ballot, this Amendment 3, the abortion issue is more or less being taken out of the hands of the politicians, right? Kind of like no matter how you feel about abortion, voting in a presidential election about abortion right now is a waste of your time because it's no longer a federal issue. Abortion is now a state-by-state issue. So saying I'm voting for Kamala Harris because, well, I like abortions is, first off, a very weird thing to say in my estimation, but also because it doesn't matter anymore to the federal level. Congress is not going to pass anything on the abortion issue. There's no way it's ever going to happen. So it's not like she's standing in the way of Republicans passing some abortion initiative. It's not going to happen. It's down at the state level. That's where it's being handled now. It's not a federal issue. So you would think, too, with this abortion amendment on the ballot in Missouri, it's much more less of an issue that you would go to the governor's race to look for answers on. But the Kansas City Star can't help itself. They open up their endorsement of Crystal Quade by saying a woman's right to choose her own reproductive health care is on the ballot in November's general election. Crystal Quade, a Democratic candidate for Missouri governor, understands the importance of this. Her Republican opponent, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, does not. They add here, both are well-versed in state politics. Quade spent 8 years in the Missouri House. Kehoe, a former senator, now the lieutenant governor. But it's Quade who we support in this race to become Missouri's first female governor. Missourians need a governor who supports a woman's right to choose her own personal health. Kehoe, they write here, is not that person. Mike Kehoe says, quote, Amendment 3 could be one of the most harmful constitutional amendments I've ever seen on the ballot. I will do all I can to see Amendment 3 defeated. The law goes way too far. It's very extreme. The Star then writes, Amendment 3 is far from extreme. Oh, it is very extreme. Very, very extreme. Just so we all understand here what is in the amendment language for Amendment 3, regardless of which side you're going to vote on, it is extreme. The actual Amendment 3 language reads as follows. The government shall not deny or infringe upon a person's fundamental right to reproductive freedom, which is the right to make and carry out decisions about all matters relating to reproductive health, including but not limited to prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, birth control, abortion care, miscarriage care, and respectful birthing conditions. Now, that word person is very tricky. That word person has to include minors. That's why the word persons is in there. So that's no parental consent, no mention of parental consent or notification. Also, adding the phrase, but not limited to, would imply gender transitioning. And also, let's be very clear, when it comes to prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, birth control, miscarriage care, there are current Missouri laws on the books that protect all of those services. Find me the Missouri law that does not protect me, does not protect you when it comes to those issues. Prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, birth control. There are Missouri laws that protect those services right now. So all this is doing is making the extreme on the abortion issue, on the transgender child issue, part of the Missouri Constitution. That's what it does. This thing is very, very extreme. But they're hoping that people are not going to read through the actual language of it. So for the Kansas City Star, they decide, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to promote Crystal Quade. We will endorse her. I will say here very confidently she is not going to win, but we're going to do it, and we're going to make it all about abortion. That's what we are going to do. And it's very transparent what they're doing. Anyone who's read the Kansas City Star for 5 minutes or uses it to line the birdcage understands what they're doing here and knows what the goal is. And it's to use a Crystal Quade endorsement to also then just push more and more on this Abortion 3 initiative, Amendment 3 initiative. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Mike. He's on KCMO. What's up, Mike?
Hey, man, it was nice to see you the other night, but I'm in class right now.
Oh, this is Mike in Olathe. What's up, buddy? I bumped into you I was with the girls at a high school football game on Friday night, my two oldest, and you came up and said hello. That was very nice of you.
Well, you're welcome, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I mean, these girls must have a good-looking mom because they're cute. Anyway, so we'll move on from there.
Well, you're right. They didn't get my radio looks. They got her looks. You are spot on about that, my man.
Yeah, God is good in many ways. Hey, listen, no, we were doing a talk today, and it's an actual intro to forensics class, and we did a talk on the First Amendment, and I wanted to get their take on what we could do differently, if anything, because of all the social media and the misinformation. And one of my students, named Kathleen, came up with an interesting quandary. And this abortion thing is huge if you watch the commercials and listen. The misinformation being put out there by the media and by the commercials and by the Star is actual in and of itself misinformation. So it was an interesting take, she goes, because if you try and reduce misinformation, then half of the things or more that we're getting is actual misinformation. So how do we educate ourselves and avoid that? Because as listening to your talker this morning about what this law actually does, boy, you would never know how extreme and how brutal this really is to women because of the misinformation being put forth. And well, anyway, I just wanted to share that when she said that, I thought of you right away, and I went, how do we get it out there? Because not everybody's listening to this show.
Well, I will say this. Thank you, Mike. Mo3facts.com is the website that Brian Westbrook, Coalition Life, shared this morning on KCMO in the 7 o'clock hour. Mo3facts.com is where you can see a lot of the breakdown, the word-by-word, sentence-by-sentence breakdown on this Amendment 3. And it's not conjecture, it's not opinion, it's actually analyzing the words in the amendment that people are going to be voting on and pointing out how extreme it really is. They use all these fancy words, and they want you to think it's just about abortion in some form, but it is extreme when you talk about how there are going to be no guardrails on, frankly, anything. I mean, whatsoever. You're talking about basically up to 9 months in the state of Missouri. That's what you're looking at. Adding here, look at this, and then I'll get to more of you. This is what it says in the ballot. The General Assembly may enact laws that regulate the provision of abortion after fetal viability, provided that under no circumstance shall the government deny, interfere with, delay, or otherwise restrict an abortion that in the good faith judgment of a treating healthcare professional is needed to protect the life or physical or mental health of a pregnant person. Anytime they refer to that as a pregnant person, that tells you a lot as well. I will just add that to the equation here. So what about the mental health, like feeling stressed? You can find any reason, right? If you're using the guidelines of protecting the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant person. Pregnant person. That's a disqualifying phrase right there. That's reason enough to vote no. Will in the Northland, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, good morning, Pete. I appreciate you taking my call. So I was calling because I have to admit a certain level of ignorance with Amendment 3. I've got my mind made up on where I'm voting elsewhere. You know, I'm going to be voting for Trump. I'm going to be voting for Josh Hawley. I'm going to be voting against the minimum wage increase. But I guess I have a question for you. Like, what is the exact provisions with Amendment 3? Because to me, reading it, it seems like what they're basically just going to be open up the door to is the Missouri State Legislature using their own interpretation of abortion. And the reason why I'm kind of on the fence about it, I have a wife who's she's very pro-choice, but you know, I kind of am a little bit undecided on it. So I'm just kind of curious to know, is it going to be friendly as far as eliminating like women who don't maybe have any sort of option to take and have nowhere to turn, or yeah? So I guess I'm just kind of wondering. I'm looking for you to maybe sell me on it of voting one way or the other, because. Yeah, because to be honest, I kind of have a certain level of ignorance to it. I'm curious to know what more about it.
Well, what I would say here is that I would suggest that you listen to the podcast from this morning with Brian Westbrook that we had on Coalition Life. That'll be up on the podcast after the show. I would go to this website, mo3facts.com. I mean, I think I spent the last 10 minutes selling you on it, but I would do that kind of research, because you really have to look at it word by word, phrase by phrase, and paragraph by paragraph to understand how dangerous some of the language is. And I would say if you're somebody who is on the fence and says, hey, like, maybe you're okay with it up to a certain point or whatever it might be, this is taking it to an extreme, which even if you're someone who has an open mind to it, I think is just heinous on all levels.
Right, and that's interesting to hear you say it's kind of open to whether, like, how many, because I know there's like the 8 weeks, 12 weeks, so on and so forth. Like I said, I probably need to do a lot of my own independent research, but
it's tough.
But I guess what's confusing about it is normally it seems like when these things are on state ballots, they specifically say, hey, 12 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever.
So no, there's none of that. There is none of that here at all. So that's the first thing I would share. But yeah, I would check out those sites and you'll learn a lot more about it. And if you're up in the Northland, they're doing an event in Liberty, 11:30 on Saturday. It is at Liberty Community Center with this guy, Brian Westbrook, and you can find out more there as well.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, just kind of looking to get a lot of unbiased information about it, because I know there's a lot of rhetoric out there, and just trying to kind of cut through all that and really see.
Now, that's what I would do. Thank you very much there. I appreciate it, Will. Paul, go ahead real quick.
Real quick, paragraph 4, Amendment 3, read that. That's all you need to know. That word, good faith, it's as if Planned Parenthood sat on the bench and handed it to the judges and said, hey, passes. Paragraph 4, that's all you need to know. And I'll be voting no on Wednesday, Pete. Early voting. Go for it.
Thanks, Paul.